All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the ancient architecture of human romance. I mean, think about it. How did our ancestors actually manage to meet, fall in love, and, keep our species going for over 300,000 years? And they did all this without dating apps, private bedrooms, or terrible relationship advice. No awkward first messages, no swiping, just human connection in its absolute rawest form. So, the big question staring us in the face is, how did ancient humans actually mate? And hey, to be clear, I don't mean the biological mechanics. That part is, well, pretty obvious. The real mystery we're looking at is how people actually found partners, attracted each other, built relationships, and managed to raise kids in a world completely devoid of modern society. Like, how did romance even function before civilization was even a thing?
Imagine dropping a modern person into a prehistoric hunter-gatherer tribe, say 40,000 years ago. The very first shock would be this massive contrast. Today, we're so used to highly curated photos, texting, and let's be honest, the ability to just ghost someone if things get weird. But the ancient reality? Absolutely zero privacy. Escaping an awkward interaction was literally impossible because, well, you had to wake up at the exact same campfire with that exact same person the very next morning.
So, that brings us to Section 1, Romance Without Privacy.
It is absolutely crucial to remember that for the vast majority of human history, romance played out on a completely different scale. We've been perpetuating the species for over 300,000 years. For almost all of that time, we were just hunter-gatherer tribes roaming the landscape. Agriculture and those larger civilizations, they only popped up a mere 12,000 years ago. What that means is almost all of our deep-seated romantic instincts were forged in these small, wandering bands, definitely not in sprawling cities.
Now, take a look at this number, 20 to 50. That wasn't just the size of a big dinner party. That was literally the size of your entire social universe. You personally knew absolutely everyone in your roaming band. There were no strangers to conveniently bump into at a coffee shop or a bar. You lived, you survived, and you searched for a mate entirely within this tiny, incredibly tight-knit group. And because you shared nearly the entire day together, walking, hunting, and eating as one single unit, privacy simply did not exist. It just wasn't a thing. Every single argument, every friendship, and every messy breakup was entirely public. It was impossible to hide an awkward interaction. Because of that, attraction worked so differently than it does today. Potential partners were judging you by constantly observing your daily behavior. They were watching how you handled everyday stress, if you were generous with your food, or if you completely panicked during a dangerous moment. Your entire personality was on constant 24/7 display.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, Survival of the Funniest. We all have this picture in our heads, right? The classic caveman myth. Hyper-violent guys fighting over mates, smashing rivals with clubs, basically relying strictly on raw physical dominance. But the anthropological reality actually paints a totally different picture. Early humans were highly social and incredibly cooperative. They attracted mates with humor, social intelligence, and storytelling. Actually, being the biggest, meanest guy didn't make you a great catch at all. Being the person who could keep the whole group functioning together happily, now that was attractive.
And this brings us to such a fascinating piece of evidence. There's this famous study of the Agda people. They're a modern hunter-gatherer society in the Philippines. And researchers found that skilled storytellers are highly sought after as mates. In fact, they actually tend to have more children. Just think about that for a second. Your ability to tell a great story and make people laugh around a fire literally helped shape human evolution. Humor wasn't just some nice-to-have bonus trait, it was a core survival mechanism.
In a world with zero possessions to hide behind, a whole camp probably had fewer objects than your kitchen right now, your personality was completely visible. So you were judged on these crucial cooperative behaviors: sharing meat after a successful hunt, staying super calm during moments of danger, comforting crying children, and basically just making the group feel safe. Your survival, and honestly the group's survival, depended entirely on these traits. If you were selfish or chaotic, you simply weren't attractive. End of story. Let's move on to Section 3, Flexible Ancient Relationships. Completely shattering that violent alpha male stereotype we just talked about, anthropologists actually found that women in many hunter-gatherer societies had enormous freedom in choosing or leaving their partners. For example, among the Juansi people of southern Africa, women frequently reject men they just don't click with. And get this, divorce is common, it's totally socially accepted, and practically drama-free. If a relationship became unhappy, people simply separated. Humans definitely evolved as pair-bonding creatures, but ancient relationships were surprisingly flexible. Some lasted decades, and others just didn't. But this brings up a good point. why did our ancestors need to form such strong emotional bonds in the first place? Well, just compare a newborn horse, which can literally stand up within hours of birth, to a human baby. A human baby can't even hold its own head up, right? And it takes well over a decade to become even somewhat independent. Raising a uniquely helpless human child is an incredibly exhausting, massive investment of time, energy, and calories.
And that brings us to pair bonding. These are basically the biological and emotional attachment mechanisms designed to keep parents together long enough to successfully raise those dependent children. So, when you feel love, it isn't just poetry and love songs. It's actually ancient biology practically begging to prevent two completely exhausted humans from abandoning each other while they're carrying a screaming toddler across the prehistoric grasslands.
All right, Section 4, the prehistoric village.
Because human babies were so incredibly helpless, mothers simply did not raise children alone. They relied heavily on what's called cooperative breeding. It's an evolutionary strategy where extended family and the wider group pitched in to help. So when you chose a partner, they weren't just joining you. They were signing up for an entire communal effort where grandparents, older siblings, uncles, aunts, and cousins were all helping each other survive.
Anthropologists use this perfect, simple phrase to explain it. Humans are the ape that needs a village. It just hits the nail on the head, highlighting exactly why human childcare was always this massive team project. A single couple trying to do it all by themselves in the prehistoric wilderness? Yeah, that just wasn't going to work out.
And this communal effort gives us something called the grandmother hypothesis. This is the evolutionary theory that human females experience menopause, which, by the way, is incredibly rare in the animal kingdom, because grandmothers living past their reproductive age became absolutely vital for the survival of their grandchildren. Literally, your grandmother exists today in part because her prehistoric assistance, her childcare, and her accumulated knowledge were critical to the survival of our entire species. How cool is that?
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, our ancient romantic software.
So, what did ancient humans actually find attractive? Well, it was deeply tied to survival. Body fat, especially in environments prone to starvation, signaled health and survivability, definitely not laziness. Scars carried real social meaning, signaling hunting experience and bravery rather than just being an imperfection. And smell. I know we covered up with deodorants today, but ancient humans really relied on it. Studies show we subconsciously detect the scent of different immune systems to produce healthier offspring. That means your nose has quietly been helping you choose genetically compatible partners this entire time.
We also have to talk about how the invention of fire literally transformed romance. Think about it as a sequence. First, fire creates nighttime safety from predators. Because of that, early humans suddenly gain these extra waking hours in the dark. And third, because they're finally safe and awake, conversation, storytelling, and deep bonding start to emerge. Romance, in so many ways, evolved right beside those campfires. It gave our ancestors those safe extra hours just to talk, joke around, and truly connect with each other.
And you know what? Those traits we bonded over back then are exactly what we look for right now. Confidence still signals competence. Humor still signals intelligence. Kindness signals reliability. Even jealousy is really just a reflection of an ancient fear of losing a massive evolutionary investment. So, underneath all the smartphones, the dating apps, and the massive modern cities, your brain is still evaluating potential mates using this exact same ancient survival software.
But look, it wasn't all just cold biological calculation. Archaeologists have actually discovered ancient graves from tens of thousands of years ago where humans were laid to rest literally holding each other, with carefully placed flowers right beside their bodies. Prehistoric humans loved, they flirted, they faced real heartbreak, and they mourned intensely. They were emotionally much, much more similar to us than we probably ever imagined.
As we wrap up this explainer, it really leaves us with one final, fascinating question to ponder. Is the human story just people searching for connection in a dangerous world? I mean, for all our advanced technology, we're absolutely still driven by the exact same emotions that existed under those ancient skies. It really makes you wonder if our modern search for love is ultimately the exact same feeling as lying awake by a prehistoric fire, looking up at the stars and just hoping that special someone likes you back.